What's up, y'all? Today we're going to be learning about some mixing tips in BandLab, and more broadly, just music in general, so you can make your music sound more professional, have it cut more through the beat, and generally just give you a better understanding of how audio and processing audio works. I will also go over some audio processing fundamentals, along with explaining some of the words and jargon that musicians use so you can be better equipped in the future. Whenever I use a musical word, I'll put a little counter in the top right so you know that it's a different meaning than how you would use it from day to day. For example, the word dry in normal words means to not be wet or covered in water. But when you're making music, it means to have no effects applied to something. For example, at least with reverb, if we set the wet dry knob to 0%, my voice would sound like this. Ah! But if we set the wet dry knob to 100%, it would sound like this. Ah! This video is going to be quite short, but I'm also going to try and put as much information as I can in it, so do try and pay attention as much as you can just so you don't miss any important information. Alright, let's go. So, most of y'all should know how to get started on BandLab. You open up the studio mode, select voice/audio, drag in a beat, and start recording. Though before you do that, it's important to make sure you have the correct audio device selected. If you're not sure of what your microphone is called on your computer, speak into it while you're selecting different devices from the drop-down, and you should see the volume bar change as you talk into your mic. For me, this device is going to be analog 1+2 Focusrite USB. Now that we've got our audio device selected, now we can drag the beat, aka the 2-track, and you can start recording. For demonstration purposes, I'll lay down a simple 4-bar verse. Now, if your vocal isn't on time when you record it, you may need to nudge it to the left or the right a little bit to make sure that it sounds nice. This can happen because of microphone lag, aka latency latencycycy c. Alright, now let's see how that sounds with the beat. AC get lit, check out that we did, circle up, people fit, no chat, people fit. Now, you can clearly hear that this isn't very good. It's not really cutting through the beat, it sounds muddy. So the first thing we can do to try and fix this is turn the beat down a little bit. How much you turn the beat down really just depends on how loud the beat is and how loud your vocals are. This beat I made is pretty well leveled, so I'll just turn it down like 1 dB. Now, when we listen again, still doesn't sound great, so the second step is going to be adding a vocal preset to my vocals. The vocal preset is essentially just a bunch of effects that someone combined together to achieve a certain sound. In the second half of this video, I'll be going over all of those effects individually, so if you ever want to make your own preset, you can do that, or just so you kind of understand why something sounds the way it sounds. Here are a couple presets on the vocal take. AC get lit, check out that we did, circle up, people fit, no chat, people fit. AC get lit, check out that we did, circle up, people fit, no chat, people fit. AC get lit, check out that we did, circle up, people fit, no chat, people fit. AC get lit, check out that we did, circle up, people fit, no chat, people fit. AC get. Now, once you find a preset you like, you can basically just start recording. If you're the type of rapper who likes to do single takes all the way through the beat, then just stick with the one vocal track, you're done. But if you want to punch in, aka record each bar individually,
that's what most rappers do nowadays.
I'd create 1 or 2 more vocal tracks just so you have more room for the individual takes. You can duplicate a track by pressing Shift plus D. Just make sure to delete any duplicate audio you might have in the playlist. Alright, now it's time for the more technical part of the video. I'm going to do a deep dive into the 2 very important effects that I think y'all should know, and then I'm going to show off a bunch more effects that are a bit more self-explanatory and will probably make sense with just an audio demonstration. The first one, though, is going to be EQ, or equalization. EQ is arguably the most important effect, or honestly, I'd better call it a tool, when you're doing audio stuff. To help y'all visualize this concept, I'm going to pull up a graphic parametric EQ. Now, I wanted to stay inside of BandLab to make this more applicable for y'all, but unfortunately, I have to give BandLab money to use their graphic EQ.
Oh my god, oh hell no, man, what the?
So I'll just use the software that I use on a daily basis. Now, as you listen to me talk, you're going to notice the EQ graph respond to my voice, and you'll notice these little peaks or bumps forming. Those are frequencies in my voice. While there are technically unlimited ways to split the frequency spectrum up, most people split it into 3 bands, or sections. That being the lows, the mids, and the highs. If you've ever tuned a speaker system or messed with your car's speaker system, you've probably already used an EQ, though it was probably labeled as bass, mids, and trebles rather than low, mid, and high. And just like tuning a speaker system, when you use an EQ, you can boost or remove frequencies. Listen as I move this little knob around. You'll hear the frequencies that correspond with the curve be boosted in the volume and reduced in the volume. Here are two of the most common uses of EQ, called filters. Filters are essentially when you completely cut off parts of the frequency spectrum. If I cut from the low notes, it's called a high-pass filter. You are currently listening to a high-pass filter. And as I cut from the high notes, it's called a low-pass filter. You are currently listening to a low-pass filter. These effects are used all the time in music, whether it be on vocals, the instruments, the drums, or even the entire song. You've probably heard this effect before. Depending on the effect used, a lot of times people describe it as the underwater effect or the really airy effect, but the correct names for them are high pass and low pass. The next effect we're going to talk about is compression. Now, while I would argue that EQ is the most important effect in audio production, it oftentimes can be a bit subtle. Compression, on the other hand, at least within pop music, is very easy to hear. For example, here's me talking normally, with no compression. And now here's me talking with a lot of compression. You might notice that this is kind of the way that a lot of popular music sounds. It's very squashed, it's very loud in a certain way. Now, what compression is actually doing, aside from how it sounds, is a little bit complicated. Effectively, what a compressor does is it affects the audio's dynamic range. Dynamic range is basically just the distance between the loudest parts of the audio and the quietest parts of the audio, and it squashes it. So something like this you would call very dynamic. We have points that are very quiet and points that are very loud. Now, something like this would be considered not dynamic at all. It is at one level the entire time. When we compress vocals, we try and get a result that's in between these two. We want to make sure that we don't have any super loud parts of our voice, but we also want to make sure that the quiet parts of our voice are being uplifted a little bit, and that's what compression does. Now again, this is a pretty tricky subject, so I'll do a quick visual representation of what's going on. Alright, so here are our two audios. This is going to be our reference for when we actually do the compression, and this is what we're going to compress. What a compressor does is it effectively takes the tops and the bottoms of the audio and squashes them down. I'm going to squash them down a bunch just so it's a little bit easier to understand. Now, as you can see, after we've squashed down the audio, it's actually a lot quieter than this audio is. Now, obviously this is Photoshop, so we can't hear it, but you can see just by looking at it that this is a lot quieter. So, after it does this, it then takes the entire thing and then squashes it back up to maintain the same volume that the original has. I'll actually add some compression to my voice in real time so you can hear how it gets quieter while it gets compressed. Generally, after you compress, you want to add some makeup gain so it's similar to the original input volume. So the volume is about the same for both of these audio clips, but you can very easily see that this one has a lot less of these peaks that we're talking about, those dynamics. It squashes the dynamics, which in turn makes it quieter, and then it uplifts everything to get this. This is what was happening to my voice in the prior example. Alright, and that's basically the main part of the video. Lastly, I'm just going to rapid fire a bunch of the more creative effects that are a bit more self-explanatory. I think just by listening to them, you'll be able to figure out kind of what they are and what they do. And then, yeah, we'll get on to making some music. This is my voice with a chorus effect. This is my voice with a delay. This is my voice with reverb. This is my voice with reverb and delay. Kind of sounds like an echo. This is my voice with a flanger. This is my voice with a phaser. It's kind of similar to a flanger. This is my voice with a little bit of distortion. This is my voice with a lot of bit of distortion. This is my voice with a multi-band compressor. This is my voice with a bit crusher.
This is my voice with a vocoder. Oh, yeah.
This is my voice with the doubler.
This is my voice with upwards formant shifting.
This is my voice with downwards formant shifting.
And lastly, this is my voice with granular delay. Now, putting all the stuff we learned together, let's make our own DIY vocal chain. First, let's add some compression to make sure that our vocal is evenly leveled. Next, we'll add some multiband compression to just give our vocal a little bit more depth. Now let's add a little bit of distortion to just give it some warmth. Next, let's add an auto-tune because, well, auto-tune. Next, let's add a doubler to give it a little bit more width. Then lastly, we're gonna add an EQ to just clean up any frequencies that we don't like. Now here, I have a pretty dry signal. If we wanna make it a bit more spacious, we can add some reverb, and then we can also add some delay. And now bada boom, you're ready to make any hit song you want.
Yeah, I'm an ARC, yeah, what the heck, yeah, get on me, bruh. I'm about my car, then I drop my roof,